Stage 10's just finished. We last caught up on the end of Stage 3. Been a fascinating week since then. I think we definitely thought stages 1 to 3 were good, but we've had some, killer GC battles, some sprint intrigue. How have you both found it?
Oh, I mean, it's been one of the most entertaining first weeks of the tour. You take out 90% of stage 4, and the rest of the tour has been superb. Straight from the off. I know we've already covered stages 1 to 3, but straight from the off on stage 1. And it hasn't relented. We were straight into a GC battle. We didn't have to wait. We'll go into it in more detail, but that's kind of yo-yoed around. And we've seen some really good racing and some really good stages between now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
how about you, Simon?
I agree. Stage 4, the beginning of it, which we'll get into, it was absolutely garbage, but it still ended well. But sum it up in a sentence, it's been the best and the worst start first week of a tour in my living memory. Best because it's been ridiculously hard, mad stages, mad GC battles from stage 1, and then the obvious elephant in the room, which makes it the worst.
Yeah. So it's the Charles Dickens of Tour de France. It's been the best of times and it's been the worst of times.
Correct.
I think I know what you're referring to about the worst of times, and we'll have to soldier on to get to that point. But we'll probably have a little section talking about, obviously, Cavendish we're referring to, right? Or do you mean Quinn Simmons going home with his injuries?
But Simmons going home,
big loss.
Me hard. I've not been able to wear my Pit Vipers ever since.
Yeah, I think and Landa not being on the podium yet. That's been a big letdown for me.
He's just keeping his powder dry for the big mountains.
Yeah, I think week 2 he's gonna bring the Landismo, isn't he? So,
yeah.
But I shouldn't really talk about that. That's Rob Hatcher's domain. So, should we have a look at just quickly recap the stages?
Yeah,
including boring stage 4. I'll just share.
The thing that really irritated me watching it, because it was the first weekend that I'd had to myself for a while, so I was really excited. I had some nice food in, some nice beers in, and of course, absolutely rock all happened. And I got the. In fact, was this in the This was midweek, wasn't it?
Yes, this was. It's Tuesday.
Tuesday. So I wasn't drinking beer then, was I? But I still had no work on really to speak of, and so I managed to watch the vast majority of it. But the thing that really irritated me is that there were lots of Belgians that were saying, let's do a famous Belgian attack. And their DSs said no. They were like,
yeah.
And I was like, what is the matter with you? Really?
Yeah, that's it. That was the interesting thing. So Phil Gilles was on the motorbike on GCN saying, "Oh, they're going to do a famous Belgian attack, and all the Belgian riders are going to go off." And it kind of happened, didn't it? For what, a few K, and it went into the race circuit. But you had that stupid lead in around the race circuit where everyone was just keeping it really safe. There was loads of roundabouts. There was that one roundabout where the bunch split off in the wrong direction. They lost about 20 paces. Then you had to. You picked.
Yeah, then went the wrong way.
Yeah.
Wellsford got lost in that, didn't he?
Yeah, and you picked up on it, Nick. There was the entry. Well, everyone saw it, but as you pointed out, the dangerous, stupid entry into the track.
It was just so narrow. So you've got everybody fighting for position to get there. The pace goes up and up and up as everybody is, getting in front of each other and fighting back. And then there was the bends into it. Then there was the really narrow entrance onto the racetrack. And then there was crashes after that. And you're thinking, oh well, it's a nice wide open tarmac racetrack. Why are people crashing? I think it's purely because so many trains had been disrupted, so many riders were all over the place that everybody was frantically trying to get back onto the wheels that they needed to be on, and it just threw everything out. And you saw 2 or 3 crashes just in those last couple of kilometres when you really shouldn't have had them.
Yeah, 3 crashes in the last 3 kilometres, which is just insane. It's an insane amount of crashes.
Yeah, because when you were comparing it to the sprint the day before, you had, I can't remember who it was, you had one of the riders was complaining about the turns and the furniture and all those sort of things. And everybody on comms, everybody when they were interviewing the riders, they were saying, tomorrow will be different. Big, wide racetrack, lots of space.
Yeah.
Big, wide open curves. Because even the sort of the chicanes and the tight curves on a racetrack, they're designed for motorbikes and cars to go round at 100 plus miles an hour. The bikes going round them, it's really wide, and actually they're going comparatively much slower than the cars, so there's plenty of room for them.
It was the worst,
but it was the chaos to get into
crashes. Yeah, the chaos. Maybe people switched off a little bit, but there was kind of some elevation change there as well. But this is where Jakobsen came down.
And then there was that Uno X rider in the last 300, 400 metres who
peeled off
the wrong way, peeled off and looked the wrong way and veered into, was it an Intermarché rider?
Yeah, just took them out.
He just absolutely cleaned him out. It was really poor riding that.
Really Sanchez. Someone broke the collarbone.
Luis Leon Sanchez broke his collarbone.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Yeah. Yeah, and that was Cav was concerned about that. So that was very close to finish well. So that was the most eventful part of the stage for me, was just the crashes, really. There wasn't much going on. Another win, you've got Philipsen winning there. Starting to come good. It's good to see him not be Jasper disaster.
Yeah.
But nothing to write home about that stage, really. Apart
from Cavendish was looking really good. He was clearly getting better from the Giro. It was a step in the right direction. The other thing I'd like to note is that Coquard was actually looking strong, and he's looked strong since.
He's been going for the intermediate points as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, he was in the break today. He's tried the first break.
Yeah, and he looked good. He looked good on Saturday. Well, we're skipping ahead, but when Pedersen won, so he's generally quite solid. He obviously got that first World Tour win, so it's good to see. I like him. He's a good rider. Just never won big, has he? Unfortunately, but that was a good stage. I guess of note there. This will be interesting discussing a later stage is MVDP's relegation for brushing into Biniam. So when he led Philipsen out, he was judged he essentially just pushed him off with his shoulder.
He leant on him a little bit once, and Biniam just relinquished his position. I think obviously the rules are the rules. If you look at the rules, he should have been relegated. But how many times does stuff like that happen in the lead up to the final sprint, during the stage, lots of other opportunities? And I think that Biniam will have that happen to him less the more he rides. I think that was a bit of inexperience. If Van der Poel tried to do that to somebody else, someone more experienced, Cavendish, even Dirty Nasser, there's no way that he would have got out. He would have just leant back in on him, and Van der Poel would not have come out of that gap. I think Biniam let him out a little bit. As soon as he got the contact, he moved immediately out of his way.
He made it easy for him. And does that, as we'll see in the next stage, is that just where Biniam's at the moment in terms of being ready to take that step up?
He's not raced that much, has he, for a while? He's been out for a while. I think, is he just lacking a bit of that edge in the sprints at the end?
Yeah,
lacking a bit of confidence.
He had that win in Tour de Suisse not so long back. He looked very good, but it was against Demar. So no, I'm only joking. I'm a big Demar fan, but Demar
he beat Wout as well in that, didn't he? He showed Wout a clean pair of heels in that too.
Yeah, and then as we've seen from Wout, as we don't call him, but as we've seen from Wout van Aert, he's not at his usual level. I think he's overtrained. or undertrained. We know he's got the birth of his child coming up. It's rumoured he's leaving the Tour de France tomorrow, as you picked up on, Simon. So,
if he does, then he's had a bad tour, regardless of the fact that he's left early.
Yeah, definitely. He's not setting an infernal. He's not setting an infernal pace as well. He's doing a lot of pacing, but he's not doing enough. I just don't think there's some. I mean, he's doing much more than I could ever do, but he's not. He's not at the level we're used to seeing or expect to see, is he? So there's something not quite right there.
But if he leaves, then maybe he'll go to the Vuelta and support the Crashy ski jumper. And Remco's just confirmed he's definitely doing it. He's confirmed yesterday, so that'll be another good battle that I'll be looking forward to.
Let's look at stage 5 now. This was a stage for the ages, really, on 2 levels. One, for the Hindley wins this stage for the Hindley win. Great panache. We talked about this stage in the preview show, it being the repeat of the 2020 stage where we saw Hershey emerge. And, well, he should have won it. He could have won it. He's pipped on the line, Roglic, and it was Pog's first stage win. Came round it, but the pace and the excitement and the parkour on that stage back in 2020 was amazing, and it was one of the most enjoyable stages of that Tour de France. But this, if that was at 100%, I mean, this was 10 times. This 10 times that, it was a 10 times the power of that stage. It was just insane. It was so good.
Well, you had that big break going away, didn't you? And there were some real quality riders in there. And surprisingly, as we've alluded to, you had Jai Hindley in there. And really unusual for the other teams to let a GC contender go away. I'm surprised as well that the break let him stay there. And, quite often when a GC contender where the break's going to get chased down because of that person, they get persuaded that, this break's not for you. But
didn't he join it it didn't go in several sort of installments, and he snuck in one of the last ones. I couldn't see every bit of it for him, but I don't think he went off in the group at the beginning, did he?
This was just so exciting. We were watching it live. If my employers are watching, I rearranged my lunch break. I wasn't skiving, but we were sending each other messages like, how has Hindley been allowed to go in this break? And
Jumbo didn't fall.
Was it 4 minutes? It was 4 minutes. It went up to like 4 minutes, 10 seconds. And it's because he wasn't allowed in that break. They didn't know he was in that break initially until he was in it. That seemed to be
that and the fact that Wow was in the break meant that Jumbo refused to pull, and UAE were just caught with their pants round their ankles. They just didn't know what to do.
Yeah. And
I've had a bit of a think about this since, and
did that hurt?
It might be one of those things that's possible with hindsight.
The hindsight principle.
Yeah. Did they let him go because they didn't see him as a 3-week threat?
Possibly. I don't know if you said this, Simon, or maybe I was just thinking this to myself, but with knowing what happened on the with Pog not really being able to keep pace, what did Pog know he was on a bad day? I think that's unlikely, because I think until he was dropped, spoiler alert, maybe it was like a fueling issue, just didn't have the legs. I think it seems there's possibly some sort of fueling issue with what we've seen since.
I think it could be a combination of a few of those things. I think Frosty's point is interesting, and it definitely could be true. I think that, look at it from the other side of the coin, never mind whether UAE and Jumbo think he's a threat or thought he was a threat. I don't think he thought he was a threat, because I know that he loves the Tour. He's talked in interviews about growing up, following the Tour as a kid. He's one of these riders that's been really into it. So I get that it was his first Tour stage win and he wanted to savour it. But if you're going for GC, you do not sit up that far back and do a celebration for as long as that. you go right to the line because they film you and take camera.
Yeah, you said he took an inordinate amount of time to absorb.
Yeah, he could have put his hands in the air
10 seconds.
Just as his 10 seconds later. Why would you do that? If you thought you had a chance, you wouldn't just spurn 10 seconds like that. I don't think.
Yeah. I think he won last year's Giro. I think we're seeing the difference between, a rider who's battling against a Carapaz and a Mikel Landa and a Roman Bardet to win on the Marmolada, versus, he's had a good 4 or 5 days looking at Pog and Vingegaard there. And maybe you're right. He didn't necessarily expect to be there. Hindley can do great watts per kilo. Last year in that Giro, he was putting out unbelievable watts per kilo. If you analyse, what we think his weight was, and he's obviously a small guy. A stage win and to wear yellow is an achievement in anyone, even someone who's won the Giro is amazing. So maybe he's happy just to do that. I think what we've seen since, you're probably right, Simon. He probably is aware. He'll always give his best, but he's probably aware he's a level below the two main protagonists.
He's a small guy, but he's got a surprisingly deep and husky voice.
I thought you were going to say something much worse than that.
It always surprises me when he's been interviewed before or after a stage, and that voice comes out of him. It's the opposite of Cadell Evans with his.
Don't step on my dog.
Yeah.
Cadell's got a mashed up face as well, mashed up voice, mashed up opinions. He's just a strange man.
Yeah, we need to.
Weird.
Yeah,
is he from Tasmania?
We'll check with the lawyers if we can include this. No worries. But what I thought was interesting though on this stage. You know what I'm like. I kind of geek out on my climbs and my gradients and watts per kilo. Was okay. They've got 140k of hard racing in the legs, but it's the Cat 1 climb. How could Hindley pull away there, and then how could Pog suffer on that? But at this point as well, obviously, sorry, we've not discussed it. Jonas's move there, it just looked insane. It just looked like the Tour. We said the Tour is done and dusted when we saw that move, didn't we?
Yeah, it did look like one of those defining moments where we've had the two main protagonists, and we've seen that nobody else is really close to them so far this race. And then it looked like one was just a step above the other. Yeah. And Vinny just shot off. Pog had nothing. He didn't completely capitulate, but he just couldn't go with him.
He didn't respond from the first second of the attack. He didn't even try to respond. He knew he had nothing, didn't try, and he lost best part of a minute in just under a kilometre. It was devastating what happened to him.
Yeah, so Vinny did that. I've not prepared correctly, gentlemen, but the other day I had this fact. I believe he did it 1.5 minutes quicker than the fastest time in 2020. And they were going great guns in 2020, so that was an epic performance. But it wasn't done and dusted, was it?
Because we got onto stage 6. And
which, to me, this was equally enjoyable. I couldn't watch it live, but you gents kept me excited. Just for some updates, I had to pause it, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it that the turnaround just took the polar opposite of the day before, with the added dimension of Jumbo-Visma reverting back to their 2020 tactics of pulling Poggy to a stage win.
Well,
very nice.
I think they thought they'd seen that weakness the day before. They thought, this is it. Let's just ride him out of the Tour. Let's put him to the sword. Get everybody on the front. He's a spent force. We'll just ramp the pace up, wear him out, and then when there's nobody left, Vingegaard can go and drop him again, put another minute or two into him, even if he goes earlier, and that's it, game over.
Yeah.
But he couldn't. Was it Custer was the last man to peel off, and you could see that Vidigo kind of upped the pace. Pog didn't even get out of the saddle; just sort of went with him. And then I think I was watching this again on the highlights program. When Pog went, Vidigo was not expecting it. He wasn't looking. He wasn't watching. He wasn't paying attention. He got the drop on him, and it was like it was a complete surprise to him. And was that arrogance from Vinegar thinking, I've got him in my back pocket here. He's not going to come past me. I'll just go when I feel like it. And then
he did a double take, didn't he? It was almost it was like, it's Pogacar.
I think it was a really clever place to attack though, because there was a supporter with a flare, and they had just come round a hairpin, and so that's like a natural place where he sort of took almost a second of rest, and I just think he was just composing himself and thinking what to do next. And if you watch Pog, he swings one way, gets into a tiny bit of a slip, and then just like swung out, and he just caught him cold. It was absolutely brilliant. I think the fact that he played lame duck all the way up until there were no jumbo riders left, I loved that, because they burn every single one of their riders out, making it hard because he won't be able to take it. And then didn't
whereas all the time Pog's just going, yep, that's right, another one gone. I'm isolating you here. You don't know what I'm doing, but I'm isolating you.
But it was brilliant, because he resisted all of his urges and his temptations to forget about his power meter and just ride like an old school rider. That's what he does. And he has said in interviews this tour that they've learned from last year. He's not said it a lot, but he's dropped it into a couple of answers. And I don't think, because he was racing the way he was racing in the first 2 or 3 stages, where he was going for bonus seconds and then he blew up on one stage, they just assumed, he's just going to be the normal Pog. And they just underestimated the fact that he's actually just mucking around with them, playing with them. He deliberately played lame dark and did something he's never done before and rode tactically, which was a stroke of genius, because nobody saw it coming. It was majestic.
And he also carried the spirit of stage 20 from 2020, the Planche de Belfi, as you said, that old school racing. So he's learning, but he retains what's special, which is just that ability to just race on instinct. Still, he's not fully tempered. But
his celebration is much better. It's more natural than the contrived, desperate, frustratingly annoying celebrations with his silly kisses. I don't like that. I just don't find him very exciting. I find
he's
him
joyful.
bland.
He's joyful. Yeah. Okay. So that was going to be my question to you, gents. Do you like Vingegaard?
I don't know. I think last year I was kind of rooting for him, because I think he was sort of the underdog up against the 2-time champion. He didn't come in as the main rider, and I'd picked him in my fantasy team last year, so I was definitely rooting for him ahead of Pog. And I think because he was the underdog, I think yes, we're British, we like an underdog. I think that was the story last year, and he was so good. And I think things like when Pog crashed and he waited for him, things like that showed some good sort of sportsmanship. I think, has he become a bit more Jumbo Visma this year? Is he a bit more unlikable? Yeah. He clearly doesn't have the same level of sort of personality and easy sort of repertoire with other people, other riders, and the press and
the press.
the
Not
public.
giving a press conference on the first rest day, giving a pre-recorded interview.
Only
marginal gain, but
but it's a. No, he's not. I think
we're fans. We want to hear from him. We want to see something genuine. Okay, you exist on sponsorship from Visma, Jumbo for now, but the fans usually are a big part. Like, you don't have the sport without the fans, but it's like
Didn't they do something like that last year as well?
I'm not sure, but I'd tell you, gents, and you've called me out on this, but I say this as a family man. I find it disrespectful. And he can do what he wants, obviously, at the end of the stage. I find it disrespectful that last year when he was winning, he was on his phone all the time. Okay, he wants to talk to his family, and he doesn't need to welcome, his competitor with open arms. But to me, he creates a barrier between himself, whether that's a shyness or an arrogance. But he creates a barrier between himself and other people in the sport, be that the fans, his competitors, or even his own team. And that is his general demeanour. Something as simple or as nice and as welcoming as a wholesome phone call to your family. For me, it doesn't have that effect as a fan. It makes me think this guy is austere and aloof, and he's not someone I can really warm to or know. So it's not to say I don't respect him as an athlete or his achievements or his watts per kilo. Obviously, I'm into that, but I don't. It's hard to warm to this guy, and that's why I'm asking this, because this stage, I think that added to not just Pog's panache, the win, the way he won with panache, how that was enjoyable. It added to my enjoyment that he was beating not his rival, but beating Vingegaard because of how he is as a person, which on paper is very nice. He just calls his family after a stage. He makes himself available to the press through his own channels, but he's not someone I can connect with on any level, really, which is strange for cycling, because cycling is a sport where you're closer to the participants than any other sport. So I was just interested to get your take on whether he's a likeable chap in your eyes.
I don't think he's dislikable. Like in a strong way. There are other riders in that team who are dislikable. The team themselves, and particularly the PR and marketing department, are intensely dislikable and scummy, frankly.
This is not the way I want our sport to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
As,
so there
as
are
Roglic PR would say.
Exactly. So there are riders like Roglic, and there are other people that I just don't like. I don't like that team, but he's one of the ones that I probably like more than a lot of the other riders. But I just find him joyless. I just don't. He doesn't bring any joy to me when I watch him. He's a great rider. I loved what Nick brought up about how that the stopping to wait for Pog, and there's certain I don't mind him, but I think the longer he stays at Jumbo, the worse he's going to get, frankly.
Yeah. Okay, should we jump on to stage 7?
Yeah.
Just very quickly, another sprint stage. So this is the best and the worst of times, I think, for
I think
Cav
this
fans.
was the stage we referred to earlier where the 4 guys went off the front and 3 of them bailed one after the other and left you
You're
one man.
absolutely right. I've written it in my note on the day, and it was Guilherme was the one that ended up on his own. I think he went away. He went away with
about 150k on his own, didn't he?
Yeah, but he went away with someone from Bora, I think. Definitely Total rider. There was 4 of them in total, and they just snuck off. And immediately
it was a Movistar rider as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then Peloton just closed the doors at the front, and they looked around and were like, "No, that's no," and they got called back by the DSs, and which is bad form on the DSs, if you ask me. But what's worse is the Samsic. DS went, "Nah, you're there. That's you." I wonder whether he's done something wrong. I wonder whether he's annoyed somebody or spoken out of turn or turned up to a team meeting late, and they've sent him up there. And then when everyone's gone back, they've gone, "This will teach you. That's your punishment."
Yeah. It was 4 hours of free advertising for Samsic. It's sole sponsors or sole rider, and all their sponsors getting all the attention. So he probably, if he wasn't in the med and up there to be taught a lesson, he probably got a special bonus when he got back to the hotel.
Probably, yeah.
And we were watching it live, Simon, just sending a few messages on the group like, "Oh, Cav's too far back. This is a stage for Cav. He's won there before. It's his type of stage. Is he coming good? He looked sharp the other day, as you said, going into the racetrack. But then, a couple of K out, we're thinking the positioning's not right again.
I don't want to have the lead out. More you than me. I was saying, no, he's there.
Oh, it's definitely me.
The overhead on that, he absolutely rinsed that sprint.
Yeah,
he came
very. I was just going to say very reminiscent to stage 18 in 2012, if anyone's into that. When he won one of his 3 stages that year. But yeah, just that.
But he wasn't he wasn't on a shoddy Italian bike then, was he?
No, he was. He was on a Pinarello.
Oh, 2012, yeah. Well, no, but there, hold on a second. Shoddy. Pinarello's
he was on a Pinarello. Yeah. We find out it's Cavendish's chain wouldn't stay in the 11, jumps up to the 12, loses momentum. Obviously, at that point, checks himself. At that point, Philipson sees him, comes across, cuts off the bin man. Again, don't know whether that should have been a disqualification, judging by the way they treated Van der Poel 2 days earlier.
It seemed questionable, didn't it? It really did. He cut right across. It seemed to deviate from his line. Cut Binniam off in a big way.
He went from the left all the way to the right.
I don't think Vinokurov said, if he hadn't won the stage, he feels he would have been disqualified. But it's not a good news story that the commissaires won.
I think the other thing,
it's just that lack of consistency with the commissaires. It's a couple of guys. They don't have any kind of, as far as I understand it, professional training qualification. Then most of them aren't ex-riders or anything like that, are they? They just seem to be a law unto themselves. And you compare that to the next stage where it's
Pedersen.
Yeah, Pedersen. No. Was it the Pedersen one, or was it one of the other Philipson ones where they really looked at it? Stage 3. It was his first.
It was his first. Philipson's first win. When he had the curve of the road with Wout. And
the barrier came out, and actually he didn't deviate from his line at all. But they took ages looking at it.
Yeah.
There was no kind of review process on this. It was like, that's it, done and dusted. He was awarded it straight away.
It would have been bad if he got that 35th stage due to a relegation.
That wouldn't. I know what you mean. It would have been harsh.
I don't think he would have been happy with that. We won't forget this stage. I won't forget this stage for 2 reasons. First, I brought out my gambling addiction and started laying bets again, and I bet on Mads. And Mads was our winner, and he pocketed me some cash, which I spent on the next day on Nielsen Paulus. So it was a short-lived enjoyment of winning some cash, but I correctly predicted Pedersen for the win. What happened, Simon? What happened
in the running? Because the break got caught about 15k to go, which is a nice time to catch it, because it gives you a sort of 5k to get yourself organised, and then that 10k drag. All the teams together on the front. It was quite a big drag race. When it led into the final straight, Christophe Laporte, our favourite questionable results rider, he did the lead out. His speed was absolutely great. His positioning was good. And then he stopped his sprint and just blocked Wout completely blocked his own rider, lost it for Wout. And then Pedersen had to go really early, but he's obviously got that power for a long time that he can sustain. And he took Philipson right to the line. Was it about half a wheel or something?
You look at the lead out that they did for Mads there. Scarmo's got on the front, did a turn of about a kilometre from 3 kilometres to 2 kilometres out, and just used his time trialling skills and was just smashing it.
What was the talking point of this stage?
I didn't really have been skirting around it. Obviously, haven't we? The camera just suddenly jolted back and he was on the deck. One thing that has been playing on my mind since after the stage is that before the stage, Cav said it wasn't really a finish for him. So he basically put his hand up and said, I'm probably not really going to go for it, which leads me to believe that his positioning was further back as a result of his decision not to go for it.
Yeah.
And he got done by the worst luck possible. It was so innocuous. He wasn't fast, which is obviously makes it worse.
Yeah.
Because Cav bounces, doesn't he? Like he's famous for bouncing, but that's normally because he crashes at high speed. But yeah, I think if he was going for that stage, he would have been further up, and that would have happened, and he wouldn't have affected him.
Yeah, more attentive. Yeah, just
And
absolutely
just
shocking.
just look at the way that Cav was riding. He was recorded as the fastest man in the sprint in at least 2, possibly 3 of the sprints so far.
The previous two,
Philipson has been the fastest man in the pro peloton at the moment. And in that previous stage, he had him on toast. He was better positioning, took that speed in. The way that we know that he can ride other people's trains, get in behind, ride the slipstream, and come out at the right moment, and then get the power down. And he's still got that power and that speed.
Yeah.
And that's what's so heartbreaking as a fan, is to know that he was in such good form. And that there were other stages later on in this tour, particularly post big mountains, where we've seen, like in the Giro earlier this year, he does seem to come out of those big mountain stages better than maybe some of his other sprint challenges. And can you just imagine the glory of it? Maybe him taking that 35th win on the Champs-Élysées. Yeah. Will he come back next year? Will it be another year? Will he be able to get back to the form he's in now? Will he be able to reconcile that idea with himself and with his family? He's got 3 kids. They want to see their dad. They don't care if he's riding and getting that 35th win at the moment. In the future, they will do at the moment.
Casper cares about him riding. He's called Casper, isn't he, his little one?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, he cares. He loves it. He's riding on the trainer next to him.
He named him after Casper Asgreen, right? I'm just joking. But it added poignance there because of that the mishap, the mechanical mishap that Cav had the day previously. He was down in the interview, and it almost foreshadowed, because he still had 3 chances to win, as you said, Nick. Could he do it on the Champs? But it's almost like, just on the footage, hours before the crash happened, we were already in that mood of lamenting that his chance had gone just due to Cav's demeanour, because he was absolutely gutted. I think he was also absolutely pissed off with his team mechanic, and from what's been said since, they've looked at the chain, and he spoke to a few of the riders about how unlucky he's been to have such a shoddy mechanical mishap. And I think there's just that frustration, that sadness there. I thought it'd be good just to take a minute just to talk about some favourite Cav memories. I've just got a few. I just want to pick a few out, if that's okay.
Yeah.
But if you've got some thoughts on stage wins. So in a way, for me, obviously it's not happy feeling that he's crashed out, but it just ties into the whole kind of the man, the myth, the legend going. So from 2008, Chassereau, I love that. The first stage win, great memory. Obviously, as a British fan, seeing a Brit finally do something rather than muddle into the yellow jersey, for example. Apart from do you remember it was like, we've got 2 Brits riding in the tour, and at the end of every highlight show on Channel 4, they would say, here they are in 124th place. 70 minutes down, it's just so it was just, oh my God, we've got a Brit riding, and then for Cav to burst onto the scene and just absolutely beast people like that, it was just incredible. Yeah. That's just like magical. But then he won at that stage again, that finish in 2011, the points year, I believe that was his first points win. Then 2021, the same stage, to get that win again, and then especially the just that stage, that finish, that town. That to me, there's so many magical memories there. But I want to be a little bit controversial here and say my favorite Cavendish achievement or Tour de France year is 2016. which for some people they might not get that. But again, he'd had a couple of tough years. He crashed out in 2014 in Harrogate. 2015, he just won the one stage. He arguably messed up in Zealand. You had the emergence of Kittel. But 2016, it was a really tough year for me personally, like really, really bad. And I was maybe it sounds quite sad to people, but I was spending a lot. Cycling meant a lot to me, like podcasts, analysis of the stages, everything. I was probably blocking out a lot of issues through cycling, and I'm sure a lot of people could probably relate to this. But on top of personal problems, the week before the Tour de France started, lots of people in Britain did something really stupid, in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, voting. And actually, didn't even vote to leave the EU, but there was a referendum which was non-binding. And the week before this tour started, and I believe it was this very stage win, because you'll see here he's not in yellow. He'd had a tough couple of years, but yeah, it was a bad week, and I went on holiday and just had a week away, and I just wasn't feeling good. I was, probably doom scrolling, a little bit negative with all the political events and news. And I was flying back on the day of the opening stage from Mont Saint Michel to Utah. And actually, I spoke to you, Nick. We had a little fantasy game going that week, just stage winner picks, and we were betting a little bit of money. And he was my pick, and which was a little bit left field at the time because he wasn't doing much. Obviously, he'd left Quick Step. He was at Mercedes, and my flight was on the morning, so I just went full media blackout. And I came home and I watched ITV. I put ITV4 highlights on. I'd avoided social media all day, and I just watched the highlights in full. And then that it was just like a release of so much negative energy into something happy. Personal problems, Brexit, just it was a real low point. Prince had just died about a few weeks earlier, and Lenny from Motorhead. It wasn't a good year generally, and that to me was just, and that good vibe just followed throughout that Tour de France to the even. I associate that with seeing Froome run up Mont Ventoux that year as well. I mean, it's just an all-time great Tour de France, and all of his stage wins that year were amazing for me. But another particular highlight, stage 19, 2009, where he was in his absolute pomp, but there was still very much the thought that he couldn't get over mountains. And I believe Bjarne Riis, CSC manager at the time, was it CSC at that point? I think they were probably Saxo, weren't they? Said you can probably get over that, and it made him change his opinion. And he won that day, like getting over some pretty severe climbs. That was an epic win. But just randomly, my favourite all-time Cav win is, I think I mentioned it earlier, stage 18 of the 2012 Tour de France, where a break went away, and you had Nico Roche, Sanchez just about made it to the line. So it wasn't a true flat-out sprint. Cav was coming from behind, but the speed. And I'm sure he's had much greater wins with speed, but the speed that he overtook them, you could see where the term Manx missile came from, and that is the image I see of him. Forget Champs-Élysées, stuff like that. Stage 18, 2012, just the dynamism of him in comparison to some pretty fast riders, and the gap he gets. It's very similar to his 2009 San Remo win, where he pips Hausler at the line, except there is no one ahead of him because he just goes so far ahead. So many good memories there. Sorry, I've gone on too long, but any that stand out?
We've got any time left for the rest of us, have we?
I've got something that's completely different to that you've not mentioned, that Cav wouldn't be Cav without these. The stealing of the dictaphone, particular favourite of mine, going in and then having to be talked, having to be convinced to come out, and then like, all right, there you go, you can have it back. That was very funny. When he missed the time cut and insisted on carrying on riding.
2018.
He missed the time cut and he carried on. and he went over the line in tears, and everyone was cheering him. They were calling him home, even though he was outside the time cut. The announcer called him home.
That's when Rod Edingworth was waiting on the finish line, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was lump in your throat moment. And then also, didn't Proudhon mention that in his speech when Cav crashed out? He mentioned it, and he said that they had to tell the police to keep the road closed because it's Mark Cavendish. He said, because it's Mark Cavendish, you must keep the road closed, which just goes to show the impact he's had on that race. I also did like when he nearly missed the time cut and he was riding through the pack of the press pack, and he saw a guy that was in his way, and the guy should have moved out of his way. Cav probably could have avoided him, but he intentionally shoulder charged him and then nearly fell off his bike and then started gesticulating at him, swearing at him. I love that. It's just, that's so Cav. Absolutely love that.
Yeah, amazing. Oh yeah, she's just a quirky character. Gonna miss him.
Yeah. I've got a few. I mean, some of those earlier wins where he was in his absolute pomp and he was just taking everybody on, and he'd appear from nowhere, and all of a sudden he'd be through and past and away. I can't remember which year it was, but it was one of the years where they first had on the Champs-Élysées stage that side on camera on the tracks.
That was his HTD, wasn't it? High road.
Yeah, the shot of him coming through at speed on that camera, was just incredible. I think one that always makes me emotional, it's not a Tour de France stage, and I'm getting choked up already starting to talk about it, was the World Championship win. Because my mum was seriously ill in hospital at the time, in isolation. We were all together in her room, all the family, watching that stage. And that was a happy moment in an otherwise pretty shitty year.
Similar to Andrew enjoying that stage when similar bad things going on in your life, and Cav into a really shit place, and that's the beauty of what cycling can do for us, and why Cav, across as many years as he has brought us so much joy between the three of us. Yeah. It's amazing.
And I don't think any of us had a dry in the house when he came back. We thought he was done and dusted, wasn't going to win any more stages. It looked like that Merckx record was off in the distance, and then he came back. And that first win in that comeback year was that just... whole year.
Yeah. I mean, that entire Tour de France, he was, I mean, we said it, the greatest comeback, but like you, Nick, touching, you associate with the sports people, obviously what it can do to your emotions through emotional times, and it's surprising that he can have that effect for such a grumpy, cantankerous little man, which is fascinating.
He's had that impact with so many other riders as well, even the ones that he's rowed with, like Kittel was on ITV this week for about 3 or 4 days, and he said that
we know you might have mentioned.
Yeah, when Kittel
mentioned it, you quite like Kittel, don't you, Simon?
Oh, he just what an absolute specimen. He's got that age. He just, I mean, it's harsh on Gary Imlach because obviously Gary, but yeah, Kittel was just looking, just incredible. Absolutely blew my mind out how handsome he looked. But he said the first time Kittel won. It was against Cav, and after the race he came over and said to him, "Congratulations, this will change your life. You are now a Tour de France winner. You'll be a legend." And for Cav to say that to him, you think of the battles that they had, and that was the first thing that Cavendish said to him, to someone who looked up to him and wanted to be him, to have that person say that to you, and then. You retired before he has anyway.
People reacted after his win at the Giro, and how they reacted after his comeback wins, and then the comments and the things that were said after he was out, and that it looks unfortunately like that's the end of that glittering career. Let's hope he might decide to come back next year. But the comments that people were making, you just got to say, he's the most liked and respected rider in the pro peloton at the moment.
Yep. So, speaking of respect, Nick, I think it's great that at no point have you bragged about having met Cavendish in person and had a chat with him.
That I did.
So there you go. See, that's a sign
well,
of
there wasn't much of a chat because the queue of people queuing to get his autograph was so long. They were like, "Yeah, don't talk to him."
Stage 9. This was a stage for the ages, really, for our age. 35 years since Puy de Dôme has been included. I was really looking forward to it. Really, really looking forward to it. We discussed it before that I thought MVDP might put on a bit of a show. On a HD climb to try and live up to the memory of his granddad. Obviously, it started at Poulador's hometown. So it was a bit of a Poulador fest. If you're a cricket fan, it was a day where Woods was a factor against the Aussies. But then, Wood. And then in the cycling, we had Woods come back. And after Woods put the stage to bed, we had the battle behind between Vinny and Pog. Enjoy this one, gents?
Yeah, it was a cracker. I mean, it was a break. It was a day that always had break written all over it, and lo and behold, a big break went off up the road, and I think they were surprised at how quickly that break formed and went because Little Trek missed it, and with it meant my pre-tour stage prediction of Ciccone because he was nowhere to be seen when those 15 riders went up the road, and then it was all going on that the break out of the break. Jorgensen went away with about 58k to go, something like that.
Yeah.
48k.
It was a ballsy effort. Fair play to him.
Long way out, and I thought he was going to do it, and then Rusty Woods just sort of reeled him in. He timed his moves to perfection, and just reeled him in.
Aerodynamic hairline helped him. The aerodynamics of his new hair.
Yeah.
Well, that's what was said by you.
All the best people.
I felt bad watching the final 500 kilometres for Jorgensen because when Woods went past him,
heartbreaking.
You could just see they were riding a different race, weren't they? Like it was
when 2 and 3 went past him as well.
Yeah, when Mohoric even took over him. Mohoric,
he was riding across the road to try and lessen the gradient because his legs had just totally gone with about 500 meters to go.
After being stung by a bee,
it was heartbreaking. Well.
Yeah, or was.
Yeah, stung by a bee, or wasn't it? Yeah.
Another duel between Poggy and Vinny.
I need to watch it back again, but I watched a highlights reel, and I want to double check. But on the previous duel that Pog won, when I know he did a sneak attack and he caught him cold, but when Vinny stood up on the previous duel and I counted it, he did 5 revolutions before his ass hit the saddle again, and he couldn't. He had nothing left. Pog kept going out the saddle for a long time, and I was looking in this Prix de Dôme, and it was similar. I need to see how
same thing happened. So
how quickly
they're with Yates. Again. Yates, Rodriguez, Pidcock doing really well, and then Pog puts the first dig in. Vinny can match it, does the revolution, stays at about 5 meters, then 10. That holds for about 20 seconds.
He keeps sitting down.
It seemed to be like then the gap lengthened, so that happened several times, and that was kind of held to the end. And then 1, it was very hot; it was well in the 30s. 2, it was very steep. Obviously, the final kilometers, and those are the 2 things that definitely Vingegaard himself, his DSs, his sports team, they keep talking up about how those are the conditions that suit him. Okay, you could argue it's not really at altitude; it's not above 2,000 meters, but that's starting to not really hold any water. That for me,
Pog just went away from him. Vinny couldn't match him. You thought, he's going to reel him back in a bit now, particularly as you get onto those final, much steeper gradients, and it just never happened. And there was one side-on heli shot, and you could just see it slowly but surely. He was stretching away from him.
Pog and Viggo go in the break this morning. Was that right?
What happened is the break was trying to go. They're about 38 seconds up the road, and all of a sudden the cameras went back and went, "What's happened?" Vinegar's attacked, and Pog just chased him. So there was a small that was a detachment off the peloton, and that went on for about 4 or 5 kilometres before it got reeled back in. It was insane. It was absolute madness, but it was lumpy from the start. They started on a climb. It immediately blew the likes of Caleb Ewan straight out the back, Fabio Jakobsen. But yeah, it was a crazy day. It was one of those breaks that took a long time to go.
Christian Islands went off, and he got a decent break, and he looked like he was maybe going to get it, and then when they got off the descent, and it was on a bit more of a flat, there was a group with about 4 or 5 riders with Bilbao in behind, and he was smashing it on the descents, closing the gap, and then when they got onto the flats, they just closed him down. At one point, it did look like the second chasing group that had Skolmars and Alaphilippe was going to get back on as well.
Yeah,
but they just didn't quite have that. So then they got there, and I heard Bilbao's interview afterwards, and if you get a chance, have a listen to that, because the way he talks about what he did in the day, how he got into the break in the first place, what he thought about when they were closing that gap down, the confidence he had in his own ability, and then how he let Zimmerman start his sprint, and he just said, "I just went in slipstream, just came past him, knew I was going to beat him." He just analysed the whole thing.
Right, shall we just have a quick update on our fantasy picks?
Fanta.
Let's just have a quick look at that. 1 second. Let's just look at our stage picks first. Guess who's in the lead with 3 stage wins correctly predicted?
Nicolas.
It certainly is.
And I've got a couple of, second place, two third places, and a fourth place as well.
We're not doing that.
In my scoring system.
Well,
in my scoring system, you get deducted 15 points for each stage, so I've won everything on my secret one in my head. But as we spoke at the beginning of the pod, at the preview, we were just picking one on the nose. So you can shove your little rules up your little black hole.
Well, we both got Phillipson, so I've got one. Simon, you're shooting blanks, unfortunately. That's nothing new for you. And that was a good pick. At the start of the Tour de France, Nick Pog winning stage 6. That was a good pick. It turned out, if you'd have said that on stage 5, so that was a great turnaround. Pedersen, you picked Pedersen. I betted on Pedersen that day, and obviously won my bet. But before the stage, I picked Laporte. In a sense, I'm kind of right. Laporte did win the stage by blocking Wout, sorry. And so technically, I think I deserve half a point for saying Laporte, because he stopped the speed Wout was coming back at. I think he would have picked Pedersen if he wasn't.
I will not give you half a point, but I'll give you admiration. I'm happy.
Yeah.
But also, same argument. I should get a point for stage 7 because it was.
I was about to say
cast change.
If it wasn't for mechanical, you had that. If it wasn't for bad chain keeping. Now I think it's time to let the viewers see our Velogames league. Surprise, surprise, it's called Damn Your Eyes. Hopefully one of the team names, or several of the team names, don't offend anyone. But Nick, this is Nick. When Seagulls follows the Troller, you're edging ahead there. It's been neck and neck between us. But you've got your secret weapon is Philipsa, as Rob Hatch would say.
I think Skolmos today was the one that put me back ahead of you. It's been neck and neck between the two of us, and Skolmos coming in, I think 7th today, was I think the difference. Your heavily led GC team with your 3 GC riders is giving you kind of a lot of daily points. So I've got to rely on stage wins.
Well, you've got Pogacar, Philipsen. They're going to bag you points for the rest of the race. Touch wood. Ciccone still got some lots of mountains to come. Same for Scalmozy. He looked pretty good today. Obviously, didn't. Probably would have wanted better. For myself, this
just
was my
lost it
outside
on that final
pick.
climb, didn't he?
Yeah, just my outside pick, Yates, has actually been. We debated, did he stand a chance? And if it wasn't for that crash in Limoges, I think he'd be slightly higher on GC. And I know we're yet to hit the real sustained tests that we've got coming, but he's doing really well. But I changed tactics a bit this year, gents. I thought, do you know what? Because of the scoring system, you can probably see it. I want the assist points for teammates. You get points for how your GC leaders are placed. So that's why I got a UAE helper. I got 2 Jumbo Visma helpers. Custer's obviously doing really well on the climbs. So that's done me quite well. What's let me down is Van der Poel to a degree, even though he's doing an amazing job for his teammate, for Philipsen, to get him up there. Obviously, he's been relegated himself. He is doing what he said he would do.
Himself.
Yeah, he's not going. He's not quite found his day, or he's going to be leaving it late. So
yeah, not
he's
for
not
the
getting
cost
many
of
points.
You'd expect a better return, wouldn't you, for the cost?
Yeah, and the consistency of Cav, well, that's gone now. So I think I'm done now. I mean, obviously, there's not many sprint stages left, but with you having Phillips and Nick, I
don't know. With those, there's five mountain stages. I think how many of them are summit finishes still?
Yeah, there is that, but it could be. I just think you've got a more well balanced team for all terrain. Really, even though I've got the 2 GC guys.
It's almost as if I picked it that way.
It's almost like you had some strategy that you wanted to win. Would you believe it? And then Simon, again, all in on your 2 GC leaders, solid. Pedersen, obviously, he's got you that win. I think he's probably going to come good. There's a couple of. He's going to be in the mix on the sprints no matter what, but there's a couple of finishes that could suit him. He's always good for a break.
I'm disappointed that Vermarker didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I thought he might get in a break.
Yeah, you got the same. Well, you went down the same route as me as MVDP. Could come good still. Let's see how. Even if he doesn't bag his own stage win, his support of Jasper could be good. But we play Tissot as well, don't we? On the official Tour de France,
which is rubbish.
It's. I don't want to. I can't show you my team, obviously, but just it's very similar. You've got the edge, Nick. You can have a look at your team for today. So that would have been probably the best pick you could make. You made the right choice there with the double points for the stage winner if you'd have won. But yeah, pretty solid team. You've got a good mix of breakaway artists, GC. But the problem with this fantasy is the you've still got 150 credit. Or was that me? I've got 150 credits left. But it's the credit system, isn't it?
I have 400 credits left, which is what you start with, which goes to show the disdain that I have for this game.
You just don't like something where you've got to get involved and make substitutions and changes and pick your stage winner bonus, right?
It stops being fun and becomes a chore when you've got to manage it every single day. It's not the way I want Fanto to go.
It's not the way you want it to go either. No.
I'm going to intentionally keep my 400 credits right until the end and not spend them just out of protest.
Well, it's been a pleasure recapping that with you. I guess we'll just look forward to the coming stages, and then we'll come back on and wow our viewers with our insight and takes on the coming stages. Thanks, gents.
Take it easy, fellas.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Peace.